Harcourts, Rata and Co. Auctioneer at number 90 Maserati Drive in Epping. My name is Robert Ozzimo. I proudly represent the company of Harcourts, Rata and Co. And I'm joined here today by some of my award-winning colleagues in blue. Should you require their advice, please feel free to approach either Jim, Andrew, Leon, and of course Mr. Tsalkos, who no doubt you've had the great opportunity of meeting throughout the marketing campaign. Buyers, let me share with you now the following announcements which in place to have you bid and buy with absolute confidence here today. The auction will be conducted in accordance with the rules, and any additional conditions are available for inspection before the start of the auction. The auction rules prohibit an auctioneer from accepting bids or offers for a property after the property has been knocked down to the successful bidder. The vendors have a reserve price as the auctioneer will indicate bidders on request. The law prohibits false bids, prohibits major disruptions by bidders, and prohibits bidders attempting to prevent others from bidding, and provides for fines for such conduct. The rules permit for vendor bids. The words I'll use during the auction to indicate that I'm making a bid on behalf of the vendor are vendor bid, and by law only I, as the auctioneer, can make a vendor bid. The contract of sale has been on display prior to today's auction. We call for a 10% deposit upon the fall of the hammer and the signing of that contract to take place here today, with the balance to be paid at settlement in a flexible 60 to 90 days time, at which time the vendor will provide the lucky buyer with vacant possession of the property. All in all, quite a straightforward contract. Everything is in here, everything is quite clear. So buyers, is with my highest recommendation what we offer for your consideration and competition here today. A great opportunity for any first home buyer among us, a great opportunity for any investor or family here in the very heart of Epping, park fronted or parkland as close as across the road. Easy access to a number of transport routes, not the least of which being obviously the bus on Findon Road. And of course, easy access to Epping Station, providing simple access into the city. Plenty of good quality schools to choose from, both primary and secondary, and of course, plenty of shopping options. The property itself immaculately maintained by the current vendor, absolutely nothing to do. Move and enjoy, and you can buy with absolute security today, knowing that the capital growth in the surrounding streets has been phenomenal over recent years. So the question you need to ask yourself today, with 2025 and seeing the market on the move, do you act decisively today and create that capital growth for yourself, or do you hesitate? Do you wait, act down the track and have to pay for that capital growth? The decision could not be any more clear. So if you would like to get the sold sticker on the board right now, buyers, is your time to reserve that right. Where can I see a fair and reasonable starting bid for 90 Maserati Drive? Who'd like to start us off, buyers? I don't mind the call. I'm in your hands. Start me where you like. Where was that? At 560,000. Welcome, best of luck at 60 now. At 560,000. At 580 and a great bid at that. At 580, can we fight fire with fire? Tell me 600 in the rise. At 90, I'll shorten my stride, get you back involved. At 90 now, and 600 it's got to be at 6 got. At 600,000 now, fairly been offered at 6. At 600,000. At 605, I'll take it. I'll shorten my stride and get you involved, and I'll tell you why, because we're on the market and selling in 10 now. At 610,000 on the market selling. I'm not going inside. My instructions are clear. At 610,000. At 12. At 612. At 20 now. At 620,000, fairly been offered now. If you're waiting for me to go inside, if you're waiting for a halftime break, not going to happen. At 22 now. At 625. At 625,000, bids back here. Keys are in play. They're here. At 27 now. At 627,000. At 30 got. At 630,000. At 630,000, the bids here now. 30. We're on the market. We're selling. 32. At 632. At 30. At 33, got them down to ones. At 633,000. At 35 now. At 635. At 635,000, fairly been offered. Bid there, keys are there. At 36 now. At 636, the bid. 8. At 638. At 638,000. At 638,000, bids there now, keys are there. We're on the market. 40. At 40 now, playing for keeps. At 640,000. At 41, at 641, at 641,000. How about 45 in the rise? At 641,000. If you come to buy, you must dig deep right now. We do sell here today. My instructions are clear. At 641, the bid's there. The keys are there. We play for keeps, on the market and selling. At $641,000 the bid. For the first call at 641, are we done? At 42, I had it here first. I saw that hand first, but you can come in at 3 if you like. At 642 and the bid's there. At 642. At 642,000. So we can't let him buy it on one bid. You've got to give him some competition. At 642,000, fairly been offered now at 642. At 642,000, we sell at 4.3 now. 4, 5 if you like. At 4.5 now, 6.45 the bid, at 6.46, at 646,000, at 646,000, bid back here now, opportunity with you, but the keys are there as it stands, at 646,000. Sir, only the one attempt here today, at 646,000, fairly been offered, bids here, keys are here, against your bid at 646. What do you say? Perhaps round me off to 50, at 646,000. 646 bids, keys are here, 646. Need to know, 646,000. First call at 646, all done. 47. At 47, welcome sir and best of luck. 48. At 8 now, at 648,000, 50 beckons. At 648,000, fairly been offered now at 648 the bid. At 648,000, at 648,000, not able to buy. We one bid here today, sir. At 648, once at 648, done. Twice 49. At 50. At 51, at 51 here, 52 now, at 652, at 600. Welcome, best of luck, but the keys are here as it stands at 652, at 652,000, at 652,000, fairly been offered bid here, my right, your left, opportunity with you, we do sell here today, 3 now, at 653, at 653,000, bids back there. At 55 now at 655, at 655,000, fairly been offered now at 655, at 655,000, bids here at 655, keys are there, once at 655, all done. At 656, at 656,000 now, at 656,000, fairly been offered now at 656 the bid, at 656,000, bid there, opportunity with you sir, 57 now, at 657, at 657, at 657,000 now, 657, say 60 in the rise sir, at 657, bids there, it's against your bid, but the keys are there, 657, at 657,000, once at 657, all done. 58. At 58 now. At 658, at 658,000, only the one bid here today. You're done. Thank you very much for your bidding. At 59, at 659,000. Got to be 60 now. At 659,000, at 659,000, bid back there. At 59 and 60 got. At 660,000, at 660,000, fairly been offered now at 660. At 660,000, bids there at 660. Pointy end of the auction, this is where it counts. If you come to buy, you have to dig deep right now. Let me know, bid me now, or whoever hold your piece. I won't take half, got to be one. At 660,000, make it 61. At 660,000, don't walk away for 500, make it 61 in the rise at 660,000. At 660,000, first call at 660, done. Second call. At 62, I'll go with the 2 if you don't mind, Con. At 662, at 662,000, bid there now at 662 the bid. At 63 now, 63. At 663,000, bid there. Still in it if you like at 663. Haven't sold it yet, but I'm about to. At $663,000 the bid. Once at 663. Are we done, sir? Twice at 663. At 65 here, welcome back at 665. At 665,000, bid there, came back in strong, but 666 I've got now. At 666,000, make it 70. At 666, at 666,000, fairly been offered triple sixes. At 666 the bid for the at 666. Second call, 666,000. 7 here. At 670 now, we'll go with 70 at 670,000. At 670,000, fairly been offered now at 670. At 670 the bid. At 670,000, fairly been offered now at 670. At 670,000, bid there against you and you sir in the middle and over here at 670. At 670,000, fairly been offered now. There's no better bid, we'll sell at that. We're certainly on the market, certainly selling here today. We play for keeps at 670,000. The bid's there, the keys are there. If you've come to bid, you must bid me now, forever hold your piece at 670,000. First call at 72 now. At 672. At 672,000. At 672, and the bid's back here at 672,000. Be very strong since you entered, sir. Don't leave me just yet. This is where it counts at 72. 673. At 3 now, 673. At 673,000. At 673,000. Might take a big bid, sir, to break the gridlock here today. At 673,000, the bid's there. Give me a big one. At 673, once at 673, all done. At 75 now at 675. At 675,000. At 675,000, are we done over there? Still considering it? Don't take too long, I'm not here all day. At 675. At 675 the bid's there. We done over here? You're still thinking about it? I'll give you a moment, I'll circle back to you at 675. At 675,000 once. At 675 done. At 675,000 twice. At 675. At I'm not taking 500, got to be one in the rise. 676, can I say? Only 500, are you absolutely certain? At 675 and a half. At 675 and a half. Half if you like, sir. Prefer one. At 675 and a half. Bids there. At 76 now. At 676,000. Small bids help the competition come along, sir. Big bids lock the competition out. Sends a message to the competition that the keys are yours, but the keys are there as it stands at 676. At 676,000, fairly been offered now at 676 the bid. At 676,000, fairly been offered bids there. Once, 676. Twice, 676. At 77 now, welcome back again at 77. At 77 now, at 77 and a half. At 78, at 678 now. At 678,000, fairly been offered now, 678 the bid. At 678, so we're definitely done here. Just checking, thank you again. At 678,000, fairly been offered over there at 78. Bids against yours at 678,000. First call at 678. All done. Second call, at 79. At 679, make it 80 now, sir. At 679, bid there. At 679 and a half, at 679 and a half. At 679, 500, 680 beckons now, 679 and a half. Can I say 80 in the rise? How about over here? How's 80 sound? 80. At 80 now. At 680,000. At 680,000 and 81 now, back up to ones. At 681,000, seeking some instructions, sir. At 681, we're definitely done. Thank you very much for your bidding here today. 681,000 bids there, keys are there now. At 681 the bid. At 681,000 and a half now, 681 and a half. At 681, 500 now at 82. At 682. At 682,000, fairly been offered now, 682 the bid. At 682,000 bids there, what do you say? At 682. At 682,000, first call at 682, all done. Second call at a half now at 682 and a half. At 3 now at 683. The halves are helping the competition come along. Try a bigger one at 683,000, bids there at 683. We done over here? At half at 683 and a half, welcome back at 83 and a half. At 683,500, bid there now, 683 and a half, back against your bid, sir. At 683,584, at 684, at 684,000, at 684,085, welcome back again at 685, at 685,006, at 686, at 686,000, at 686,000, bid back there, keys back there, 686 on the market and selling at 686. Bids there, what do you say? How about over here at 686? Are we definitely done? At 686,000, still done, sir? Thank you again at 686. At 686,000 once, at 686, done. At 686,000 twice, and a half at 686 and a half. At 87 now, at 687, the quick retort at 87, at 687,000, at 687,000, bid there at 687, at 687,000 now, knock most of the buyers out, one or two to go, at 687,000, bid there, over here, and a half at 87 and a half, at 687 and a half. At 88, I had it there first, Ange, at 88. At 688, at 688,000. At 688,000, got to go with who I hear first. At 688, the bid. At 688,000, bid there against your bid at 88. Can I say 90? At 600, at 90 now. I'll give you 700 then. At 690, at 690,000, bids there at 690, bids here rather at 690,000 and a better bid at that. At 690,000, at 690,000, 90 and a half now. At 690 and a half, believe me, ma'am, it's harder for me than it is for you. At 690 and a half, at 690,591 now. At 691, at 691,000, at 691,000, bid back here, opportunity there, 91 and a half now. At 691 and a half, at 691,000. 691,500. How are we going over there, Ange? Thank you very much for your bidding, sir. At 691,500, bid there. Opportunity here, out there, out there, out there. Two in it at 691.5. Once at 691.5. Done. And a half at 92 at 692,000. Might be first to 700 wins at 692 at 692,000. Fairly been offered now at 692 the bid at 692,000. Once, twice, and a half now at 692.5. Give me 95, ma'am. Can I say 95 in the rise? 692.5 in the bids there at 692,500. At 692.5 now. Fairly been offered. Give me a big bid. Big bids buy property. And one at 693.5 at 693,500. Bid there now. Have they done enough? At 693,500. At 693,500. Bid there. Keys are there. Sir, we're definitely done over here. Thank you again. Done here. Done there at 693,500. Everyone tells me they're out but one at 693.5. Bids here. Keys are here. On the market. Selling 94 at 694 now. At 694,000, at 694,095 if you like it, 694,000 fairly been offered. At 694 the bid, at 694,000 fairly been offered now. Once at 694, twice at 694,000 and a half now at 94.5 at 694,500 at 694,500. Big back here again, my right, your left. Opportunity with you, won't be for long because we do sell here today at 94.5 at 694,095 now at 695 at 695 at 695,000 fairly been offered now 695 on the market playing for keeps. 95 there, say 700. At 96, at 696, at 696,000. Are you absolutely sure? You've been so strong since the very start. Don't leave me just yet. This is where it counts. 97. At 97 I've got. At 97, it's against you at 97. At 697,000. Oh, sorry? At 97, we're back in at 97. Miscalculated there at 97. Bid there. Bid there at 97, it's against you, and one at 98 now. At 698, give me 700, sir, in the rise. At 698,000. At 698,000, bid here, keys are here, 98 the bid. At 698 for the first call at 698. Second call at 698,000. Third, final call, 600 and a half at 98. Got to be 700 in the rise. At 99, at 699. Might be, as I said, sir, man, might be first to 700 wins. We have to put that theory to the test. At 699,000, bids here, keys are here, one to get to 7. At 699, are you absolutely sure? At 699,000 for the first call. At 699, all done. Second call at 699,000, done. Finished. Third, final call at 699, all done, all finished, silent out at 699, done there. You're definitely done, so you didn't find any money over here. Thank you again, at 699,000, done there. Sir, ma'am, you tell me you're out and I'll sell to the highest bidder. Need to know, do I have your absolute best here today or can I get that cheeky one and take it to 700? You sure? I noticed some hesitation there, you're absolutely sure? So I can't read you, sir. Take your glasses down. Look me in the eye. Tell me you're out at 99.5. Got to be 700 now. At 699.5. At 699,500 now. At 699.5. Fairly been offered. At 699,500. Bids there. Keys are there. We're selling. 699.5. Once. 699.5. Twice. And 700 got there eventually at 700,000. Would have saved some time, ma'am, if you gave it to me when I asked 10 minutes ago. But we're there nevertheless at 700,000. You put yourself in good stead. Might have just done the job there at 700,000 even money. At 700,000, first call at 700,000, all done. Second call at 700,000, all done, finished. Third, final call at 7, all done, all finished. Silent out at 7. It's just a round number, sir. You absolutely sure? Thank you very much for your bidding here today. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. 700,000. Once, twice, third, final call, all done, all finished, all silent out at 700. We're selling, selling, selling. Sold. Congratulations and well bid. Please join me in congratulating our purchasers and our vendors here today. You've just witnessed another successful Harcourts, Rata & Co auction. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again soon. Thank you. Congratulations.